Welcome viewers. I am Sriram Madhusudan Rao, working as an assistant professor in Chebrolu Engineering College. So in this lecture, I would like to explain about ferromagnetism and its types. Actually, these are the series of lectures on magnetic properties. So these are highly useful for first year BTech students of all universities as well as BSc students. So kindly follow the lectures. So in the last lecture I have discussed about diamagnetism and paramagnetism. Actually the types of magnetism are diamagnetism, paramagnetism, ferromagnetism. Okay, you can see the flow chart in the on the screen. So first one is the diamagnetism, second one is the paramagnetism, and third one is the ferromagnetism. So again, ferromagnetism is classified into two types. The first one is antiferromagnetism and the second one is ferrimagnetism. Okay, the ferromagnetism was classified into two types. The first one is antiferromagnetism and the second one is ferrimagnetism. So generally these are the three types: diamagnetism, paramagnetism, ferromagnetism. Again, ferromagnetism is classified as antiferromagnetism and ferrimagnetism. So in the last lecture I had discussed about diamagnetism and paramagnetism. So in this lecture I will discuss about ferromagnetism. So ferromagnetism. So this is the simple a soft iron is a ferromagnet. It is made up of alnico. It is made up of alnico. So in the diagram, if you can see the diagram carefully, this is a soft iron ferromagnet made up of alnico. Here this is the caper, this is the magnet, this is the magnet, this is the caper. So we have written here, this is made up of alnico, this is the caper. Caper means, the role of caper here, it protects the magnet. So it will protect the magnet means it prevents the leakage of magnetic field. We can simply say that it prevents the leakage of magnetic field. So the term used here was keeper. So this is the a soft iron, soft iron made up of soft iron and alloy salnico generally. So this is the magnet, this is the caper. So the caper acts as a protector. That means it prevents the leakage of magnetic field from this magnet. So generally this is the image of magnet you can observe in the olden days generally. So ferromagnetism, we are discussing about ferromagnetism. So generally, if when you search or refer any books, you can find these simple diagrams. Whenever you have searched for ferromagnetism, you will find these diagrams or images. So I will explain what is the meaning of these diagrams. So when there is no external field, here in the image it has written, when there is no external field H equal to 0, all the dipoles are aligned in the same direction. Okay, you can simply look at the image. So whenever we have applied the field, all the dipoles are aligned in the field direction. Even though in the absence of field they are aligned in the same direction, but there are some but there are some deviation, little bit of deviation in their direction. But whenever we have applied the magnetic field, they will align surely in the direction of applied magnetic field. So you can simply understand by these diagrams in this way. So again, this is also the same thing. Here the arrows are dipoles. This is called dipoles. So whenever the dipoles are aligned in the same direction, generally we term it as ferromagnetism. So if we look at this diagram, here this is a specimen. So if we apply the field to the specimen, all the magnetic field is penetrated through the specimen. All the magnetic field is highly penetrated through the specimen. So these are the simple meaning of these diagrams. I am giving general explanation first of all. So when the absence of applied field, all the dipoles are aligned in same direction with a small deviation. So whenever we have applied the field, all the dipoles are aligned strictly in the field direction. So this is the same direction. So all the dipoles are aligned in the same direction. So in this diagram, all the field lines are completely penetrating through the specimen. So generally these are the meanings of these diagrams. I am giving here explanation only for just these images, general idea. Okay, please follow me. This is the general idea of ferromagnetism. Whenever if we try to answer the question in exams, you see if simply you can use this diagram and explain in this way. So I am giving the general explanation. So here what makes the ferromagnetic materials to behave like this is the reason. The reason being is there is a property called spontaneous magnetization. There is a property called spontaneous magnetization. Spontaneous magnetization was exist in the ferromagnetic materials. So actually in the last slide we have taken all the dipoles are in the same direction, but the literal meaning is they are not in the same direction throughout the specimen, only for the small regions. You can observe this diagram carefully. These are the small regions in which all the, if we take, suppose if we take this segment, what you can observe, all the dipoles are aligned in the same direction. Simply if we take this segment, so in this segment also all the dipoles are aligned in the same direction. In this segment also all the dipoles are aligned in the same direction. In this segment also all the dipoles are aligned in the same direction. But overall, if we can look at the below diagram, the resultant of all these can be simply represented by a colored arrow. That means this is the resultant of all these arrows. This is the resultant of all these arrows. So when we observe the whole specimen, all the dipoles are aligned in the random direction. So only for a single segment, they are aligned in the same direction. So technically these divisions or segments are called domains. So technically these segments or divisions are called domains. So in the absence of field, if we look at these images carefully, this is the image of each domain. So the below image is the colored arrows are the resultant of those in each domain. So if we look at the two diagrams, the segment is called, technically these small portions or segments are called domains. So even when H equal to 0, the dipoles tend to strongly align over small patches below Curie temperature. So only up to one particular temperature only this phenomena will takes place. Okay, So generally this phenomena is called spontaneous magnetization. Here the word is magnetization. Spontaneous magnetization. So the meaning lies itself in the word spontaneous magnetization. So when there is no field, all the dipoles are aligned in the strongly aligned in some direction. So this phenomena is called spontaneous magnetization. So simply spontaneous magnetization means even when h equal to 0, the dipoles tend to strongly align over small patches below Curie temperature. So only up to particular temperature only it will exist. Whenever we have increased the temperature for a particular value, after particular value, again all the even in the one segment will all the dipoles will turn into different directions. Okay, if you increase the temperature, here the dipoles will tend to align in different direction in a single segment. So this is the effect of temperature. So this phenomena exists only up to a particular temperature only. You have to remember that point. So this here, this is the temperature is called technically Curie temperature. So simply even in the absence of applied field, the dipoles tend to align over small patches. So here the small patches or segments or divisions are called technically called domains. So this is the phenomena of spontaneous magnetization. Phenomena of spontaneous magnetization. Okay. So what is the reason? So a question can arise in your mind. So what factors make the spontaneous magnetization? So here the phenomena is the exchange interaction. The reason behind the spontaneous magnetization is the exchange interaction. Also this is called exchange coupling. So generally we know that the whenever as it is the there are electrons sorry, there are atoms, so in the atoms there are electrons. So the electrons in the neighboring atoms will interact in such a way. Here we can look at this diagram. The this is suppose one atom and this is suppose one atom. So the outer electrons, the electrons in the outer orbits will interact and align in the same direction. So this is the reason for exchange interaction. Okay, this is in this way. This is one atom, this is one atom. The electrons from the outer orbits will interact and finally the dipoles will align parallel even in the absence of external applied field. So this phenomena is called exchange coupling. So you have to remember this point carefully. So you have to write the properties of ferromagnetic materials. The first point is generally the reason for spontaneous magnetization is exchange interaction or exchange coupling. By this phenomena only the dipoles will make parallel alignment. So this is the reason, this is the main reason. So in the last before slide I had given this image. There are domains in the below that figure of domains. This is the image. So these are the dipoles that are oriented randomly throughout the specimen. So whenever we have applied the field, magnetic field, here B is H, magnetic induction, this is the magnetic field strength. So there is relation between them, so don't confuse. H is the applied field strength, B is the magnetic induction, that is magnetism produced inside the material. So whenever we have applied the field strength, the domains will align in the direction of field, then produces a large magnetization. Okay, simply you can look at the diagram. So in the objects of external field, they are in the random direction whenever we have given the external field. So the dipoles tend to align in the field direction greatly. Suppose there are 100 dipoles, almost 99 dipoles will align in the field direction. So the magnetization is very high because of 99% of the dipoles are as 99% of dipoles are aligned in the field direction, automatically the magnetization is very high. So origin of ferromagnetism. So already we have discussed about the spontaneous magnetization. Okay, so here we have some points. Permanent magnetic moment results from atomic magnetic moment due to uncancelled electron spins. So in these atoms there were electrons. The electrons have uncancelled electron spins. So by that the permanent magnetic moment was arise. And next point was small contribution from orbital magnetic moment. So already we have some idea about origin of magnetic moment. So there is a small contribution from orbital magnetic moment. So the next point was quantum mechanical exchange interaction favors parallel alignment of moment. So in this diagram, generally we can, already in the first slide I have given some information regarding the images whenever you refer or search for ferromagnetism. So you can find images like this. That means all the dipoles are aligned in the same direction and parallel. So here the why the spins, the dipole moments are parallel means there is quantum mechanical exchange interaction. So already I have given about the exchange interaction, or this is also called exchange coupling. So technically in high technical level it is generally called quantum mechanical exchange interaction. So by this phenomena, the dipoles are able to align in the parallel direction. So alignment within a domain. So already in the first slide given the I have given the domains. So in a single domain, all the magnetic dipoles are aligned in the same direction. So generally this type of image, that means all the dipoles are parallel. That means that they are only restricted to a single domain, not for the whole specimen. You have to careful about this. You have to very careful about this clarity. This image, this type of images, that means whenever we have written parallel directions, that means this is restricted to only single domain, not for the whole specimen. So alignment within a domain. So what is the reason for alignment within a domain? Quantum mechanical exchange interaction. What is quantum mechanical exchange interaction? The electrons of the neighbor atoms interact with themselves so that they will align in the parallel direction. Already I have given in the before slides of two neighboring atoms and their outer electrons are interacting. So this is technically called quantum mechanical exchange interaction. So due to uncancelled spins. Next one, due to small contribution from orbital magnetic moment. And next one is quantum mechanical exchange interaction. And the next one is alignment within a domain. So these are the points for origin of ferromagnetism. So already as I had explained in the previous slides. This is the spontaneous magnetization. So whenever we have increased the temperature, whenever if we have increased the temperature, all the dipoles will turn into random directions. Okay, so whenever we have applied the temperature, that means heat, the dipoles will automatically turn into random direction. So what is the technical word? Thermal energy. So thermal energy can be used to overcome exchange interactions. Thermal energy can be used to overcome exchange interactions. So this is up to Tc. So whenever the temperature is greater than Tc, automatically the dipoles will align into random direction. So if we can observe the diagram, this is the temperature, this is the magnetization. So in this diagram, in this flow, here it is already represented. So in this state, the dipoles will align in the same direction, parallel direction. Whenever after Tc, automatically at temperature Tc, the dipoles will align into random directions. So the temperature at which the dipoles will turn into random direction is called Curie temperature. So Tc here is the Curie temperature. So simply these are the 2 points. Thermal energy can be used to overcome exchange interactions. So already I have given about the exchange interaction. So Curie temperature is a measure of exchange interaction strength. So Curie temperature. So Curie temperature is the boundary. We can simply take it as the boundary. So before that boundary, these are in the ordered state. That means in parallel directions. Whenever it crosses the boundary, automatically the dipoles will turn into random direction. So this is the effect of temperature. So technically called thermal energy. So using thermal energy, we can change the situation. So this is the same another graph. So this is the temperature, boundary temperature. This is called Tc. So before the Tc, the spontaneous magnetization was arises. After Tc, automatically the spontaneous magnetization was removed and material becomes paramagnet. That means it exhibits paramagnetism. So before Tc, it is exhibiting ferromagnetism. So after Tc, automatically the dipoles will aligned into random direction and it will exhibit paramagnetism. So here Tc is the Curie temperature, ferromagnetic Curie temperature. It is material specific. That means for every material there is a specific temperature. So suppose for some material has 1020 Kelvin and another material has 1040 Kelvin and another material has 1200 Kelvin. So it depends on the material. It is not same for all the materials. It is the simple meaning of material specific. So by this diagram again also we can say about the significance of Curie temperature. So before the Curie temperature, the spontaneous magnetization occurs. After Tc, there is no spontaneous magnetization. The material becomes paramagnet and it exhibits paramagnetism. So simply we can conclude that exchange interaction decreases with temperature. So it can also be written as exchange interaction decreases with temperature. So exchange interaction by only for exchange interaction for only the spontaneous magnetization occurs. If there is no exchange interaction, automatically no spontaneous magnetization. This is the significance of this graph. So before Tc, there is spontaneous magnetization. That means there is exchange interaction. After Tc, it goes to 0. That means there is not at all any spontaneous magnetization or exchange interaction. So the boundary temperature is called Tc. Generally it is called ferromagnetic Curie temperature. So it is generally material specific. So again, I am again giving the same concept using another diagram. So this is ferromagnetic state. So generally, eh, as already I have given the information about the images regarding ferromagnetism. The whenever the arrows means dipoles are in the same direction or in parallel direction, it simply represent ferromagnetism or ferromagnetic materials, whatever it is. So whenever we have given heat, whenever we are applying heat, that means thermal energy. So when the energy is gradually increases, suppose it reaches Curie temperature, automatically the dipoles will align in the random direction. So the temperature at which the ferromagnetic material become paramagnetic material is called Curie temperature. Okay, so these are the different Curie temperatures for different materials. For iron, this is 1043 Kelvin. For nickel, this is 631 Kelvin. For cobalt, this is called, sorry, this is the value for, the value is 1400 Kelvin. For for this is 298 Kelvin. So they as this is different for different materials. So the main concept is whenever the thermal energy is given, the ferromagnetic material is converted into paramagnetic material at a particular temperature. The temperature is called Curie temperature. So simply we can write as thermal energy can randomize the spin. It has the capability of randomize the spin. So whenever the spin changes, automatically the direction of dipoles will changes. So this is the effect of thermal energy on these materials. So this is the effect of thermal energy on these materials. So the Curie temperature for a graph was shown here. Actually this is the graph corresponding to the experimental values. Right side we have taken temperature, sorry, on the x-axis we have taken temperature in Kelvin scale, and on the y-axis we have taken the saturation magnetization. So saturation magnetization, so in the last slides we have used a word spontaneous magnetization. Here we are using a word saturation magnetization. So saturation magnetization means whenever we have applied the external field to the specimen, the dipoles will align into the field direction. So this is called saturation state. So saturation means they will take the energy and use all that energy in moving in the field direction. That is the meaning of saturation. So the saturation magnetization was taken on y-axis, temperature was taken on x-axis. So if we look at the graph, these are the values for iron, cobalt, nickel. So iron has the highest saturation magnetization, and nickel has the lowest saturation magnetization, and cobalt has the medium saturation magnetization. So when the temperature increases, all these values, so all these are decreases. Okay, if we increase the temperature, it is moving in this way, so this is the graph regarding the experimental values. So once again I am giving information about Curie temperature. So already I have given, once again I am giving information. So the temperature above which ferromagnetic materials become paramagnetic. So below Curie temperature, the ferromagnetic state is ordered and above it is disordered. You have to Simply remember these terms. Ordered means parallel, disordered means random. Okay, ordered means parallel, disordered means random. So the saturation magnetization goes to zero at the Curie temperature. So I have given the graph in the previous slide. The saturation magnetization goes to zero at the Curie temperature. So these are the 3 points regarding Curie temperature. First one is above Tc, the material becomes paramagnetic, and this is the another point. So below the Curie temperature, this is in ordered state, and above Tc it is disordered. So ordered means parallel, disordered means random. So the last point was the saturation magnetization goes to zero at the Curie temperature. These are all the points you can simply remember using the diagrams. But for your remembering purpose, I am again giving this in points. So next one is the temperature dependence of susceptibility. Temperature dependence of susceptibility. So temperature dependence of susceptibility. So this is we have taken temperature on x-axis, susceptibility on y-axis. So this is the Curie temperature. So below Curie temperature, the material was in ferromagnetic state. The susceptibility is very large because all the domains are aligned in the field direction. Whenever we have increased the temperature, all the dipoles will turn into random direction and the material becomes paramagnetic. So this is the graph between susceptibility and temperature. So the relation is psi equal to C by T minus Tc. C is the Curie constant, T is the temperature we are applying, Tc is the Curie temperature. So C is the Curie constant, T is the temperature we are applying, Tc is the material specific Curie temperature. So this is the dependence of temperature on susceptibility. So below Tc ferro, above Tc para. See, this is the same concept again and again we are using. Below Tc ferro, above Tc para. So generally, now we are discussing about the properties of ferromagnetism or ferromagnetic materials. Ferromagnetism is the magnetism. So now the properties are, the first one is susceptibility is large and positive. Why? Because of all the dipoles, as all the dipoles are aligned in the field direction, automatically susceptibility is large and very high value. So C is Curie temperature, C is Curie constant, Tc is Curie temperature. So when the temperature is greater than the Curie temperature, the material gets converted into paramagnetic. Material gets divided into small regions called domains. Next, the important property of ferromagnetic materials is they possess the property of hysteresis. So you have to remember the point carefully. They possess the property of hysteresis. So the examples are iron, cobalt, nickel. Iron, cobalt, nickel are the examples for ferromagnetic materials. So hysteresis is the property of ferromagnetic materials. Hysteresis is the property of ferromagnetic materials. So magnetic hysteresis, it is also called magnetic hysteresis. So what is the hysteresis? Means generally loss. Hysteresis means generally loss. So what is the actually the meaning of hysteresis is loss. So what makes the loss to that material? So whenever we have applied the magnetic field to a ferromagnetic specimen, whenever we have applied a magnetic field to a ferromagnetic specimen in a cycle, that means AC current. Simply for example purpose I am using AC, alternating current. Whenever current, there is always magnetic field. So when there is an alternating current, there is alternating magnetic field. So whenever we have applied a alternating current to a specimen, there is some loss in the material to use that energy. So the material is not able to use the 100% energy. Suppose we have given 100% energy, it will use only 80% energy. The 20% energy will loss. The loss is generally appears as heat. So for practical application, I am giving transformer. Generally we know transformers. So generally these ferromagnetic materials are used in transformer cores of transformers. So you can simply remember that if you are aware of the transformer, there is a heat produced in the transformer because of this alternating current. So this is the hysteresis loss. So the technical meaning is this is the curve, hysteresis curve. Actually this is the curve traced by here was hysteresis curve. Here we are applying magnetic field on x-axis and magnetization was on y-axis. So it is the curve, it is called the hysteresis curve. So this is the general idea about hysteresis. In the next lecture or upcoming lectures, I will explain in a single video about the hysteresis. So simply remember, hysteresis is the property of ferromagnetic materials. That means there is a loss. Whenever we have given 100% energy, it will only uses 80% and 20% of energy will lost. That is the concept. So there is a loss of energy. So this is called simply the magnetic hysteresis. So suppose I am explaining ferromagnetism by using iron, by taking the iron as an example in simple 2 slides. Just follow it. So this is the specimen of iron. So these are the domains. The domains will actually in the, if we experimentally observe that the regions are, the domain regions are 1 mm. So in the absence of magnetic field, external field, all the dipoles are aligned in random directions. So the magnets made with iron are said to be ferromagnetic materials. Inside iron, small domains which are 1 mm regions polarized to form dipoles. So the dipoles are randomly oriented in unmagnetized piece of iron so that magnetic effect cancel each other out. So as a whole, it has no magnetization. So whenever we have applied the field, that means in a magnetized piece means we are applying the magnetizing in this direction, So if we can observe the long lines, so the magnetism is in the direction of the field. So all the dipoles will align in the field direction. There are only few dipoles, the arrows magnitude, you can look at the magnitude very less. So major, the long magnitude are aligned in the field direction, that is in this direction, in this direction. So this is the magnetization in iron piece. So iron can become magnetized by placing it in a strong magnetic field. So as all we know that whenever we have given a large magnetic field, the iron will attract easily. So strong magnetic field. So heating or mechanically hammering a magnet will cause it to lose its magnetization. So heating, already we have given the thermal energy, regarding the thermal energy. So whenever we have applying the heat, automatically the dipoles will align into random and the magnetization will last. And also by hammering, whenever we have hammered, the heat is produced and the dipoles will align into random direction. So this is the point. Heating or mechanically hammering a magnet will cause it to lose its magnetization. So if iron is heated above the Curie temperature 1043 Kelvin for iron, a magnet cannot be made magnetic at all. So if the temperature is above Curie temperature, the spontaneous magnetization will last and all the dipoles are in random. We are not able to magnetize the material. So this is the importance of Curie temperature. So I am explain the ferromagnetism based on iron. So next topic was antiferromagnetism. Antiferromagnetism. Next type of magnetism was the, as we have already discussed in the first slide, there are two types of magnetism in ferromagnetism: antiferromagnetism and ferrimagnetism. So the first classification was antiferromagnetism. So antiferromagnetism. So you can look at this image carefully. So this is restricted to single domain. Please be careful about these diagrams here. The arrangement means it is only restricted to a single domain, not for the whole specimen. So here is also there are exchange interactions. So in this type of materials, the alignment was anti-parallel. This is anti-parallel to this is anti-parallel to this is anti-parallel to this. So this type of materials, whenever there is an anti-parallel alignment of dipoles, that type of materials are called anti-ferromagnetic materials, and the magnetism performed by them are called anti-ferromagnetism. So what is the reason for the dipoles to align like that? Again, this is the same principle, quantum mechanical exchange interaction. In these materials, this phenomena behaves like to align the anti-parallel. In ferromagnetic material, it behaves like parallel, here anti-parallel. So depending on the material and the spins, this will takes place. So anti-parallel alignment of exchange interaction favor anti-parallel alignment of atomic magnetic moments. So material are magnetically ordered but have zero remnant magnetization. So that means even though these are appearing to be ordered means in a regular some pattern. So suppose the pattern is repeating here, these two are anti-parallel, these two are anti-parallel. Again, if we expand, again anti-parallel combination you will get. So even though these are in this state, there is no magnetization at all, because as there are anti-parallel, these two get cancelled and the magnetization was zero. So the examples are generally many metal oxides are anti-ferromagnetic. So the major concept here was the anti-ferromagnetic materials have anti-parallel alignment. The reason for that is quantum mechanical exchange interaction. So generally many metal oxides are anti ferromagnetic. Okay. So here is also, if we apply the heat, that means thermal energy. The ordered state means generally here in anti-ferromagnetism, ordered state means anti-parallel. So anti-parallel becomes random. All the dipoles become random. That means thermal energy can be used to overcome exchange interactions. Thermal energy can be used to overcome exchange interactions. So magnetic order is broken down at nil temperature. So here the particular boundary temperature is nil temperature. In case of ferromagnetic material, it was Curie temperature, but here in anti-ferromagnetic materials, it was the nil temperature. So above nil temperature, the anti-parallel alignment will break and the dipoles will turn into random direction. So the particular temperature is called nil temperature. Okay, thermal energy can be used to overcome exchange interactions. Next one is magnetic order is broken down at the nil temperature. So now we are studying the properties of anti-ferromagnetic materials. So the first point was the spin alignment is in anti-parallel manner. So actually these are the anti-parallel. Sorry for the no clarity. So the spin alignment is in anti-parallel manner. So the net magnetic moment is 0, because as these two are anti-parallel, suppose this is 2 mu b, suppose generally this is plus 2, this is and in the opposite direction plus 2 minus 2 0, and again plus 2 minus 2 0. So overall net magnetic moment is 0. So susceptibility depends on temperature. So when the temperature increases, the dipoles will align into random, automatically susceptibility decreases. So susceptibility is small and positive. So as these are in anti-parallel direction, the susceptibility is very small and positive. So initially susceptibility increase within temperature, and beyond nil temperature the susceptibility decreases with temperature. So as already I have given in the previous slide, it will only up to only a particular temperature. After crossing the boundary, automatically susceptibility will decreases. So at nil temperature susceptibility is maximum. So at nil temperature susceptibility was maximum. So the examples are FeO, MnO, Cr2O3, salts of transition metals. So these are the properties of anti-ferromagnetic materials. Okay, anti-ferromagnetic materials. So this is the structure of MnO2. This is the structure of MnO2. This is the lattice site of O2 minus, and this is the lattice site of Mn2 plus. This is the Mn2 plus. So I will explain the important structures and their applications in upcoming lectures. So kindly only look at this structure of MnO2. So temperature dependence of susceptibility. So the temperature, so up to a particular temperature the susceptibility is increasing. So we carefully observe at this graph the temperature versus susceptibility. So up to particular temperature the susceptibility increases and becomes maximum at a point. This is called Niels temperature. So after Niels temperature it is decreasing. Okay, so up to only a particular temperature only the susceptibility is increasing, after that it is decreasing. So this so the boundary here, it is called Neal's temperature. So up to Neal's temperature the susceptibility increases. After Neal's temperature the susceptibility decreases. So the susceptibility is maximum at Neal's temperature. The susceptibility is maximum at Neal's temperature. Okay, the susceptibility is maximum at Neal's temperature. Okay, so this is the relation of susceptibility versus and temperature. Psi equal to C by T plus Tn. C is Curie constant, T is the temperature we are applying, Tn is the boundary temperature or Neal's. Boundary is the general word, Neal is the technical word. So Neal's temperature, psi equal to C by T plus Tn. This is the relation between temperature and susceptibility. This is the graph of susceptibility versus temperature. So the next classification was ferrimagnetism. The second classification of ferromagnetism was ferrimagnetism. So in ferrimagnetism there is a similar arrangement of spins like anti-ferromagnetic exchange interaction. Okay, similar to that of anti-ferromagnetic exchange interaction, but the difference, you have to carefully observe the difference here. This is long, this is short, this is long, this is short, this is long, this is short. We can extend the pattern. This is long, this is short. Suppose this is 5, this is 2. Let us take an example. This is 5, this is 2, and again this is 5, this is 2. So what is the net magnetic moment? 5 minus 2, 3. Okay, 5 minus 2, 3, 5 minus 2, 3, 5 minus 2, 3. So overall there is 3. On the average there is 3. Magnetic moment was 3, actually 3 mu b. That means 3 Bohr magnetons. That is the actual representation, but for simplification purpose I am giving 5, 2. So the net magnetic moment was 3. So that means there is some net magnetic moment in the specimen. There is some net magnetic moment in the specimen. Okay, this is the simple explanation of ferrimagnetism. So anti-ferromagnetic exchange interaction. So here again the interaction was anti-ferromagnetic exchange interaction. So different sized moments on each sublattice. Different sized moments on each sublattice results in net magnetization, because 5 minus 2, 3. Overall there is 3 mu b. 3 mu b. That means 3 Bohr magnetons. There is 3. That means some magnetic moment was left in the specimen. So examples are magnetite and magamite. Magnetite and magamite. So simply there is some net magnetic moment arises in the material. So what are the reason for this alignment? There is anti-ferromagnetic exchange interaction. So the main concept is exchange interaction. By this only they are able to form like this arrangement. So that is the exchange interaction. So this type of magnetism exhibited by the materials are called ferrimagnetic materials. The magnetism is called ferrimagnetism. So properties of ferrimagnetic materials. Generally oxides in nature. Generally these are oxides. Their nature will be ionic in nature. So ceramic in nature, so high resistivity. So they are used as generally insulators. They have high resistivity, also called ferrites. These are very important. I will give one lecture on especially on ferrites and applications. It is very useful and very interesting. So ferrites, also called ferrites. So general form of ferrites is MFE2O4, where M is divalent metal ion. Here M is the divalent metal ion. Susceptibility is very large and positive. The susceptibility is very large and positive. Examples: ferrous ferrite, nickel ferrite. So these are the properties of ferrimagnetic materials. Ferrimagnetic materials. So the temperature dependence of susceptibility. So again it is similar that of ferromagnetic materials. The temperature dependence of susceptibility is similarly as that of ferromagnetic materials, because there is some net magnetic moment in the specimen, as there is some net magnetic moment in the specimen even in the absence of external applied field. That means here also spontaneous magnetization was there. In ferrimagnetic materials also spontaneous magnetization was there, but this is compared to ferromagnet, it is less some extent. So up to Tc it is high. So after Tc automatically the material becomes paramagnet. So the same relation psi equal to C by T minus Tc. So we have to carefully remember that up to Tc the susceptibility is large, and after Tc the susceptibility gradually decreases, psi equal to C by T minus Tc. So there is spontaneous magnetization in ferrimagnetic materials also, but when compared to that it is some bit less. So that is the main concept. The summary. So this is the summary regarding all type of magnetisms. So why the magnetic moment arises? Due to permanent dipoles. So based on the permanent dipoles we can simply explain the type of magnetism. So permanent dipoles. So there are no permanent dipoles in diamagnetic materials. So there are permanent dipoles in para, ferro, antiferro, ferromagnetic materials. So this is the concept using permanent dipoles. There are no permanent dipoles in diamagnet. In remaining all these materials there are permanent dipoles. So now again we are dividing based on the alignment of dipoles. So if they are random, this is called paramagnetism. Okay, if they are random they are called paramagnetism. Next, using if they are uniform. Uniform means in a regular pattern. That is the simple meaning of uniform. So if these are uniform, how can the magnetism was ferromagnetism, anti-ferromagnetism, ferrimagnetism. Okay, these are using uniform. Next, based on direction. Based on direction. Suppose if these all the directions are same, this is called ferromagnetism. If it is a opposite are called anti-ferro and ferri. Okay, opposite are called anti-ferro and ferri. Next classification is based on magnitude of dipoles. Magnitude of dipoles. If the magnitude is same, it is the anti-ferromagnetism. If the magnitude is different, it is called the ferrimagnetism. So by using this flow chart we can simply explain the basic difference. The basic difference, that means in the ordering, the difference in the ordering of their dipoles. The difference in the ordering of the dipole. So whenever if they in exam they are asked distinguish between the magnetic materials, it can be very useful, and it will, by writing this flow chart you can get minimum marks. So this is the thing you have to remember carefully. So this is the flow chart regarding all the magnetisms. So next, Next also one summary on susceptibility and examples of. So here magnetism, magnetic susceptibility examples. So diamagnetism was negative susceptibility. The magnitude is small and constant. Examples are organic materials, superconducting materials, metals like bismuth. These are the examples for diamagnetic. Next, paramagnetic materials. The susceptibility is positive. So the magnitude is small and constant. Examples are alkali and transition metals, rare earth metals. Next classification was ferro. The susceptibility, the sign of susceptibility was positive. It is large, value is large and function of applied field. Examples are transition metals, iron, nickel, cobalt, rare earth metals. Such type of examples are there. Next classification is antiferromagnetism. So it is positive, small and constant. Examples are salts of transition elements. Next classification is ferrimagnetism. Sign of susceptibility was positive susceptibility, large and function of H means applied field. So examples are ferrites and chromites. So this is the table related to types of magnetism and their susceptibilities and examples. Next one is the conclusions. Conclusions. So this is the ferromagnetic order general. So as I had given the information in the first slide, whenever you search of types of magnetic materials, you can simply find this type of images. This is called generally ferromagnetic order. Kabatti in simple ferromagnet, all the dipoles are aligned in the parallel direction. In a simple antiferromagnet, all the dipoles are aligned in anti-parallel direction. In ferrimagnet, even though they are anti-parallel, but the magnitudes are different. This is the simple difference between antiferro and ferri. In antiferro, the magnitudes are equal, but in ferri, the magnitudes are different. So this is called generally ferromagnetic order. Even in exams, you can simply use in these diagrams and explain the types of magnetism in your own words. So the susceptibility of diamagnetism is negative. Its value is minus 10 power minus 5 to 10 power minus 6. Examples are gold, copper, silver, bismuth, silica and superconductors. These are the examples for diamagnetism. Next one is paramagnetism. The susceptibility is small and positive. Its value is 10 power 6 to 10 power minus 6 to 10 power minus 4. Examples are aluminum, platinum, manganese. Next one is the ferromagnetism. Its susceptibility is large and positive, greater than 1. The susceptibility is large, that means 50 to 10,000. Examples are iron, cobalt, gadolinium. So these are the examples for ferromagnetism. So next one is the antiferromagnetism. So susceptibility is small and positive. Its value is 10 power minus 3 to 10 power minus 5. 10 power minus 3 to 10 power minus 5. Examples are MnO, NiO, MnS, etc. So these are the antiferromagnetic materials. And next one is the ferrimagnetism. The susceptibility is large and positive, that means greater than 1. Examples are Fe3O4 ferrites, NiFe2O4, Fe2O4, PbFeO, PbFe 12O19 etc. So these are the susceptibility values. Why I am repeating these susceptibilities are the values to show the values of susceptibilities. I am given these slides. So the influence of temperature on magnetic behavior. So generally in the as a whole for the whole types of ferromagnetic materials, the effect of temperature, I wish to explain the effect of temperature on magnetic behavior. So as the generally as the temperature is increases, thermal motion of atoms increases and automatically randomize, all the moments will randomize, that is saturation magnetization decreases for both ferro and ferri. You have to remember one point carefully: saturation magnetization. Already we have learnt about spontaneous magnetization is the absence of field below only particular temperature. Saturation magnetization is the after applying the field they will completely aligned into one direction, that is the saturation. So simply before field spontaneous, after field saturation, that is the simple meaning. So spontaneous magnetization is for both ferro and ferri. The spontaneous magnetization is both for ferro and ferri, as well as similarly saturation magnetization was both for ferro and ferri. That is the major point you have to remember. Spontaneous magnetization is both for ferro and ferri, not for antiferro. And there the spontaneous magnetization was not there for antiferro, only for ferro and ferri. So the saturation magnetization decreases both for ferro and ferri as temperature increases. The next temperature, we know what is the temperature, Curie. So the temperature at which saturation magnetization decreases and drops to zero is called Curie temperature. So ferro and ferri magnetic materials are paramagnetic above Tc. You have to remember the point carefully. Ferro and ferri materials are paramagnetic above Tc. So the next temperature is Néel temperature. So it only belongs to antiferro. Curie was belongs to both ferro and ferri. Néel temperature is only belongs to antiferro. So at which antiferromagnetism vanish. That means it is converted into another magnetic material. So antiferromagnetic material become paramagnetic above this temperature. So this is the Néel temperature. So Néel temperature is only for antiferromagnetic materials. So the temperature at which antiferromagnetism vanishes. Antiferromagnetic material become paramagnetic above this temperature. This is all about Néel temperature. So the next one is experimental data and graphs. Experimental data and graphs. అంటే experimental data and graphs. So I am just give some information by using only two graphs just for your understanding purpose. The practical, what is the practical values of these susceptibilities or temperatures or magnetization values, etc. So as already explained in the ferromagnetism, so saturation magnetization when it arises after applying the field. So saturation magnetization versus temperature. Saturation magnetization versus temperature. Saturation magnetization versus temperature. So we are taking the iron, cobalt, nickel. These are the major materials used for applications. So for iron it is very high value. For nickel it is very low value, for cobalt it is medium value. So after increasing the temperature, all these are dropped to zero. That is the major concept you have to remember. After increasing the temperature, all these saturation magnetization gradually decreases and vanishes at a particular temperature. What is the importance of iron, cobalt, nickel? Actually, these alloys are made up of iron, cobalt, nickel for for practical purposes, in industrial purposes, and for engineering materials. That's why I am giving this graph. For a different iron, for iron it is high, for nickel it is low, for cobalt it is medium. So for achieving, sorry, for their practical purpose, for their practical application or engineering applications, they will take the proportions of iron, cobalt, nickel, and they will get the desired saturation magnetization and use in engineering applications. So next, this is the graph between temperature and saturation magnetization. Again, on graph temperature and this is the degree temperature. In the last diagram, they have taken Kelvin scale, and here they have taken degree centigrade scale. So Fe3O4, these are the ferrites, ferrimagnetic materials. This is the pure iron. So pure iron has very high saturation magnetization. That means all the dipoles, majorly 99.9% dipoles will align in the field direction. So they have, iron has very high magnetization. For ferrites it is less magnetization. So if it is very high, it is very difficult to remove the magnetization. Suppose if it is very less, you can simply remove the magnetization. So what is the this practical application? Actually, ferrites are used in course of transformer course. So as there is an AC field, so magnetization has to change from cycle to cycle. Magnetization has to change from cycle to cycle. So as it is less, they can simply remove the magnetization, and again they can use the magnetization for their desired application. So that's why Fe3O4, that means ferrite. Ferrites are very important. So this is the graph of showing the magnetization. Pure iron has very high saturation magnetization. This ferrite has very this ferrite has some low magnetization. So they can use this low magnetization for their desired applications, for engineering application. So thank you viewers for watching this lecture. Please follow this series of lectures.